So very happy morning to all. Happy morning, sir. So we are doing assessment procedure part number 2. In that we'll be solving 10 questions, which is from question number 11 to question number 20. So 1 by 10 is a target. An assessee sustained a loss under the head income from any property? House property. In the previous year, relevant to the assessment year 23-24, which could not be set off against income from any other head in that assessment year. Assessee did not furnish the loss within the time allowed under section 139 subsection 1 in respect of relevant assessment year. However, the assessee filed the return within the time allowed under 139.4. What is 139.4? Can the assessee carry forward such loss for set off against income from house property for the assessment year 23-24? Yes. Because only 5 sections are notified by section 80, 72, 73, 73A, 74, 74A. Section 139 subsection 3. If a person has sustained a loss under the head, profits and gains of business or profession, or under capital gain, and claims that such loss should be carried forward under section 72, 73, 73A, 74 and 74A, then he may furnish a return of loss within the time prescribed under section 139 subsection 1, and all provisions of Income Tax Act shall apply as if it were a return furnished under section 80. Notwithstanding anything contained in chapter 6 is set off and carried forward. The loss which has not been determined in a pursuance of a return filed in accordance with the provisions of 139 subsection 3 shall not be allowed to be carried forward and set off under 72, 73A, 74 and 74A. Loss under the head income from any property is carried forward under what section? And section 80 does not make a reference to 71B. 71B. Therefore, loss under the head income from house property can be carried forward even if the return is filed after the due date. Therefore, in the present question, the loss under the head house property of assessment year 22-23 can be accrued, can be carried forward, and set off against income from house property of assessment year 23-24, even if return of assessment year 22-23 was filed later. That means, since 71B is not covered by section 80, you can still carry forward the loss under the head house property even if you are filing the return late, is what the takeaway from the question. I am moving into the second question out of 10 question. This is past examination May 2007 question. T, an individual, filed his return of income for assessment year 23-24 on 15/6/2023, declaring a total income of 1,20,000. He later discovered that he had not claimed a particular deduction amounting to 2,10,000 while computing his business income in the said return. He filed a revised return on 31/12/2023, declaring a total loss of 90,000. அப்ப first return of income எப்ப file பண்ணிருக்காங்க? 15th June 2023. This is a 139 subsection 1 return. And that return was an income return. He later discovered 2,10,000 rupees loss. Up 1,20,000 minus 2,10,000, it bring to a loss of 90,000. Sir, up 139 subsection 1 kapram 139 subsection 4 போட்டிருக்காங்க. And the 139 subsection 4, 139 subsection 3 ஆயிருக்கு. Correct. 139 subsection 5 போட்டிருக்காங்க. 139 subsection 5, 139 subsection 3 இருக்கு. The AO proposed to disallow the claim of T for carry forward of business loss amounting to 90,000 for the reason that revised return declaring loss for the first time was filed beyond the time prescribed under 139 subsection 3. Examine the validity of the proposed action of the AO. Is AO correct? No, sir. Because original return is 139 1 return. Other revised பண்ணி தான் 139 5 போட்டிருக்காங்க. அதுதான் 139 3 ஆயிருக்கு. அதனால sir, the assessee can. The issue is covered by case of Dharmapur Sugar Mills Limited. In this case, it was held that a revised return substitute the return from the date of original return was filed. Once a revised return is filed, original return is deemed to have been withdrawn and revised return is deemed to have been filed on the date of the original return was filed. The revised return stepped into the shoes of a return. As per the judgment in case of Dharmapur Sugar Mills Limited, a revised return under 139(5) substitute the original return from the date of original return was filed. Hence, a revised return filed on 31/12/2023 substitute the original return filed on 15/6/2023 and is deemed to be filed on in the date. Therefore, as per provisions of section 80, read with 139 subsection 3, the loss of rupees 90,000 shall be forward. AO was not justifying in declining the claim of T for carry forward of loss, business loss. So the takeaway of that question is 139 subsection 1 return file பண்ணி அதை நீங்க 139 subsection 5 மாத்திட்டீங்க. அதில உங்களுக்கு 139 subsection 3 loss return வந்துச்சுன்னா you can still carry forward the loss. Entering into question number 13, which is our third question in this slot, which is a past examination of May 2012. State with reason whether return of income is to be filed in following cases for assessment year 23-24. இவங்கள return of income file பண்ணணுமா? Mr. X, an individual aged 80 years. What is the basic exemption limit? 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs? 5 lakhs, because the assessee is a super senior citizen. Has a gross total income of 6,50,000 and is eligible for deduction of 1,60,000 under chapter 6A. Will you see gross total income or total income? Since the gross total income exceeds the basic exemption limit, sir, he has to file the return of income, correct? As per the provisions of 139(1), every person, if his total income during the previous year without giving effect to the provisions of chapter 6A exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to tax, shall on or before the due date furnish a return of income or the income of such other person during the previous year. Since the income of Mr. X exceeds the amount not chargeable to tax before giving deduction under chapter 6A, he has to file his return of income. Yes, he has to file the return of income. Number 2, ABC in a form. Every partnership firm and company has to compulsory liable to file the return of income as a loss of 10,000 during the previous year 22-23. Yes, as per 139 subsection 1, every person being a company or a firm shall on or before the due date furnish a return of his income or the income of such other person during the previous year. It is therefore compulsory for ABC, a partnership firm, to file his return of income even in case of NSR loss. I'm moving to the third one. A registered institution eligible for exemption under 1023B, that means 139(4)(c). Various association who are claiming exemption under section 10 has income from house property of 2,80,000. Their income exceed basic exemption limit before claiming exemption under section 10. Then they are compulsory liable to file the. As per section 139(4)(c), every institution referred inter alia in section 1023B shall, if the total income in respect of which such association or institution is assessable without giving effect to provisions of section 10, exceeds the maximum amount not chargeable to income tax, furnish the return of such income for of the previous year. Therefore, it has to file his end of income return of. Mr. Y, an employee of ABC Limited, draws a salary of 4,90,000 and has income from FD with a bank of 10,000. The gross total income exceed basic exemption limit. Yes, Mr. Y is required to file the return of income under section as his income exceeds the taxable limit. He has to file his return of income by due date. So like this question you will be getting, sir, who and all have to file the return of income or not? I'm moving into the fourth question of our second slot, 4/10. This is a November 1994 question. Fantastic to the core. Discuss the following. A return of income under section 139 may be signed and verified in case of individual, any person duly authorized by him in his behalf. For example, if an individual is filing return of income, who can sign the return is the question. அவரே சைன் பண்ணலாமா இல்ல அவர் சொன்ன யார் வேணா சைன் பண்ணலாமா? As per section 140, the return of income is required to be verified in case of individual, by the individual himself, either உன்னோட return file பண்ணும்போது நீயே sign போட்டுக்கோ, or whether the individual is என்ன from India, by the individual himself or by some person duly authorized by him in this behalf. Wherefore, any reason it is not possible for the individual to dash the return by some person duly authorized in this behalf. So, in the above two cases, person so authorized to verify a return must hold a valid enough attorney to verify the return, and power of attorney should be attached with the return of income. அப்ப நீ ஒரு இண்டிவிஜுவலா இருந்தா ரிட்டர்ன் ஃபைல் பண்ணும்போது நீயே தான் என்ன பண்ணணும், ரிட்டர்ன் வெரிஃபை பண்ணணும். இன்கேஸ் நீ இந்தியால இல்ல உன்னால சர்க்கம்ஸ்டன்ஸ் ஒத்துக்க முடியலனா நீ வேணா இன்னொருத்தர என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், ஆத்தரைஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம். அந்த ஆத்தரைஸ் பண்ணும்போது என்ன ஆஃப் அட்டர்னி வேணும், பவர் ஆஃப் அட்டர்னி வேணும். பக்கா? A firm carrying on business filed a return of income disclosing an income of 7,50,000 on 1/12/2023 in respect of assessment year 23-24. So this return of income எப்ப போட்டிருக்காங்கன்னா 1/12/2023. Is this 139 one time limit or 139 four time limit? 139. அப்ப ஒரிஜினல் ரிட்டர்னே என்ன ரிட்டர்ன், belated. It discovered an omission therein and therefore revised under section 139(5). We know that ROW, revision, omission or wrong state. On 31/12/2023, because that is the last date for revising a return, showing a revised income of rupees 6 lakh. அப்ப ஃபர்ஸ்ட் போட்ட போது என்ன ஆச்சு, 7,50,000 இன்கம். ஆனா திருப்பி ரிவைஸ் பண்ண போது இன்கம் என்ன இருக்கு, கம்மியாயிருக்கு, 6 lakh ஆயிருக்கு. ஏனோ அவர் இக்னோர் த ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்ன், அவர் ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்னை இக்னோர் பண்ணிட்டாரு and proceed to process under 143(1) on the என்ன ரிட்டர்ன், ஒரிஜினல் ரிட்டர்ன். இவன் என்ன சொல்றாருன்னா, sir, I am not considering the revised return, I will process only the original return you have filed because அந்த ரிட்டர்ன்ல தான் இன்கம் அதிகமா இருக்கு. Please offer your comments, what you are feeling. Is AO correct or not? Wrong, sir. So in the present case, due date for filing the return for firm could be either 31st July or 31st October or 30th November under section 139 subsection 1. But since a return is filed in December 2023, it's a return filed under 139 subsection 4. தலைவன் 31st July இல்ல, 31st October இல்ல, 30th November இல்ல, கன்ஃபியூஷனே வேணாங்கறனால டிசம்பர்ல கொடுத்திருக்கான். அது 139 subsection 4 return. As per the provisions of 139 subsection 5, a return filed under 139(1) or under 139(4) can be revised. A return filed under 139(4) can be revised under section 139(5). Therefore, a revised return filed in December is a dash return. Therefore, the action of AO is not justified and AO should process the dash return under section 143(1). However, fees under 234(f) shall be levied because for late filing of the return, because the return is a belated return, yes or no? So, for that fees under 234(f), F stands for fees, will be levied, which we already discussed, 5,000, or it may be restricted to 1,000. I am coming to question number 15, which is our 5/10. A return of income was filed within the statutory time provided under the act. Correct? Time ku file panti without making the payment of any assessment due, self assessment tax due as per the return. Eda consider pannamana self assessment tax determine pannam. The same was paid before completion of the assessment. ஆனா அந்த self assessment tax நீங்க எப்ப பே பண்ணிருக்கீங்கன்னா assessment complete பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி பே பண்ணி. AO want to declare the return as invalid. Is the AO justified? Is a question. அதாவது இந்த question நமக்கு என்ன பதில் சொல்லி தருதுன்னா, self assessment tax கட்டாம return file பண்ணா அந்த return valid return இல்ல invalid return ஆங்கிறது தான் question. As per section 139 subsection 9, what is 139(9)? Defective return. A return shall not be considered as defective if self assessment tax and interest has not been paid under section 140A on or before the date of furnishing of the return. Tax கட்டல, இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் கட்டல, அந்த ஒரே ஒரு பிரச்சனை தான் இருக்குன்னா அதனால மட்டும் ஒரு ரிட்டர்ன் டிஃபெக்டிவ் ரிட்டர்ன் ஆகாது, ஆகக்கூடாது. The return is therefore valid and not defective. Therefore, AO cannot treat the return to be invalid. This is an amendment, not our Finance Act. Before Finance Act, earlier நீ return of income file பண்ணும்போது tax கட்டாம file பண்ணேனா return will be treated as defective return. இப்போ சார் டாக்ஸ் கட்டல இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் கட்டல அதனால மட்டும் ஒரு ரிட்டர்ன் 139 subsection 9ல டிஃபெக்டிவ் ரிட்டர்னா ட்ரீட் பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. I'm moving to question number 16 which is 6/10 sir which is a May 2003 question. The return for assessment year 23-24 was filed in time as per 139(1). The assessee during the course of assessment proceedings under 143(2) noticed certain omission and therefore filed a revised return on April 18, 2024. தலைவ எங்கேயோ போயிட்டான். The AO ignoring the revised return so failed framed the order on April 27, 2024 is the action of AO correct. First, you have to go through the dates. 139 subsection 1 return file பண்ணிருக்காங்களா? 139 subsection 1ல return file பண்ணி 143 subsection 2ல notice வந்திருக்கா? 143 subsection 2 is a scrutiny assessment notice. That has to be sent within 3 months from the end of the financial year in which the return of income has been. So நம்ம assessment year இருந்தா sir 36/2024 is the last date to issue a notice under section 143 subsection 2, correct? And the assessment has to be completed sir within etana masam 9 months from the end of the relevant assessment year in which the income is. That means 31/12/2000 is the last date, correct? Sir இவங்க எப்போ ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்ன் ஃபைல் பண்ணிருக்காங்க? April 18, 2024. இது 153 subsection 1 time limit exceed ஆயிச்சா இல்ல உள்ள இருக்கா? April 18, 2024 153 subsection 1 time limit exceed ஆயிச்சா இல்ல உள்ள இருக்கா? 31/12 க்கு முன்னாடி இருக்கா இல்ல 31/12 க்கு அப்புறம் இருக்கா? முன்னாடி இருக்கு. And sir April 27, 2024 sir 153 subsection 1 time limit க்கு sir உள்ள இருக்கா இல்ல exceed ஆயிச்சா? உள்ளதான் சார். So in the present case revised return for assessment year 23-24 can be filed up to எது வரைக்கும் தான் ஃபைல் பண்ண முடியும்? 31st December. சார் ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்னுக்கு நீ 139 subsection 5 டைம் லிமிட் தான் செக் பண்ணணுமே தவிர 153 subsection 1 டைம் லிமிட் செக் பண்ண கூடாது. கரெக்ட்டா இல்லையா? சோ இங்க ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்ன் சார் பிலேட்டடா ஃபைல் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. ரிவைஸ் ரிட்டர்ன் பிலேட்டடா ஃபைல் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. Since a revised return has been filed after 31st December, it is void ab initio and hence the action of AO is justified. Because revised return should be filed within the time limit of 139 subsection 5. The revised return has not been filed in 139 subsection 5. So that revised return has to be ignored by the AO. I am coming to question number 17. Sir, 7th question out of 10. This is a November 2009 question. Assessee failed to deposit the amount of tax under 140A for 10,000 but failed return of income in time. AO besides charging of interest as per 234B and 234C also issued show cause notice to levy a penalty of 2,000. Assessee says that there is no provision in the act to impose penalty for non-payment of tax under 140A. Again the same question is repeating. While filing the return நான் பண்ண ஒரே ஒரு விஷயம் என்னன்னா டாக்ஸ் மட்டும் பே பண்ணல. அதுக்காக 234B C இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் போட்டிருக்காங்க. நியாயம். பெனால்டி லெவி பண்ணிருக்காங்க. How much rupees? Is that penalty is in a SR valid or not is the question. As per provisions of 140A provisions badala. If the assessee fails to pay the whole or part of the tax or interest or fees under 234F required to be paid under 140A, then he shall be deemed to be in default. In respect of tax and tax and interest remaining unpaid. அதாவது என் ஆஃப் இன்கம் ஃபைல் பண்ணும்போது ரிட்டர்ன் ஆஃப் இன்கம் ஃபைல் பண்ணும்போது நீங்க 140A செல்ஃப் அசஸ்மெண்ட் டாக்ஸோ இன்ட்ரெஸ்டோ உங்களுக்கு பெண்டிங் இருக்குன்னா assessee in default-ஆ ட்ரீட் பண்ணுவாங்க. assessee shall have to pay interest under section 220 and penalty under section 221 for being an assessee in default. அப்படி அவங்கள assessee in default treat பண்ணிட்டாங்கன்னா consequences will be interest under section 220 and penalty under section 221. அப்ப என்ன கதை? So when you are filing the return of income, if you don't pay the self-assessment tax under section NA 140A, the assessee will be treated as assessee in default. Sir, once an assessee has been treated as assessee in default, interest under section 220 and penalty under section 221. As per section 221, the AO can levy penalty up to an amount which assessee has not paid under section NA. அப்போ 148A எவ்வளோ செல்ஃப் அசஸ்மெண்ட் டாக்ஸ் கட்டலையோ அந்த அளவுக்கு என்ன போடலாம்? பெனால்டி போடலாம். Therefore, AO could have charged penalty up to how much? Under section 221 or not depositing self-assessment tax of how much? Therefore, AO is justified in levying the penalty for 2000 for non-complying the section 140A. Accordingly, the contention of AO is incorrect. So 140A is a self-assessment tax. அப்ப return file பண்ணும்போது நீ self-assessment tax கட்டலேனா assessee will be treating as assessee in default. And once assessee has been treated as NA in default, the consequence are interest under section and penalty under section 221. I'm moving to the 8th question out of 10th question. This is a May 2013 question. That means I have consolidated nearly 50 examination question from the assessment procedure. If you are thorough, that's it. Mahesh, a resident and ordinarily resident in India. We all know that for resident and ordinary resident, global income is taxable. Having a house property and a bank account outside India and is not required to file return of income for assessment year 23-24 if his total income is below maximum amount not liable to tax. அதாவது assessee யாரு and யாரா இருந்தா his global income is taxable in India. And if this resident and ordinary resident is having an asset situated outside India, என்னது? Then or if he is a beneficiary or beneficial owner of an asset situated outside India, irrespective of the basic exemption limit, he has to compulsory liable to file the return of income. Discuss with reason whether a statement is N or not, correct or not. The statement is N correct, incorrect. Because 4th proviso to section 139 subsection 1 provided also that a person being a resident other than not ordinarily resident in India within the meaning of section 6 who is not required to furnish a return under this subsection and who at any time during the previous year holds a beneficial honor or otherwise any asset including any financial interest in an entity located or as signing authority in any account located or is a beneficiary of any asset including any financial interest in any entity located outside India shall furnish on or before the due date a return in respect of his income or loss for the previous year in such form and verified in such manner and setting forth such other particulars as may be. Therefore, every resident and ordinary resident having any asset located or signing authority in any account located is required to file a return of income in the prescribed form compulsorily whether or not yes in a income chargeable to tax. Therefore, Mahesh has to file a return of income in the prescribed form compulsorily for financial year 23-24 even if his total income is below the maximum amount not liable to tax since he is a resident and ordinarily resident in India and has a house property and a bank account situated outside India. So, one line summary of the entire discussion is in case of a resident and ordinarily resident, if he is having a asset situated outside India or is having a signing authority for an account which is situated outside India, irrespective of the basic exemption limit, he has to compulsory liable to file the return of income. I'm moving to question number 19, which is 9/10 is a target. This question has been asked for November 2014 and repeated in November 2017 and November 2023. If assessee does not pay the self-assessment tax before furnish the return of income, a return file shall be deemed to be a defective return. Is it so? No, sir. Sir, tax கட்டலங்கிறதுனால return என்ன ஆகாது? Examine the correctness of the statement in the context of the provisions contained in Income Tax Act. The statement is not correct. As per amendment made by Finance Act 2016, I already told. Earlier that was the position. But in Finance Act 2016, they have amended, said that, sir, in section 139(9), a return shall not be considered as defective in if self-assessment tax and interest is not paid under section NIA. On or before the date of furnishing of return, the return is therefore valid, is a question. I'm moving to the last question, question number 20, which is 10 by 10, which is November 2017 question. Arjun's total income for assessment year 23-24 is how much lakh? 10 lakh. Consisting of salary, capital gain and income from other sources. Total 10 lakhs irundhirukku. Idukulla salary irukku, capital gain irukku, IFOs. After considering TDS and advance tax of sum of rupees 50,000 towards tax is still payable. Ella minus pannadukku appuram ipo evlo nikkudu? Payable nikku. Because of various reasons, he could not file his return of income within the prescribed time limit. Arjun approached you for advice on the following issue. Whether he can file a return of income on 1st December 2023? Yes, sir. Belated return under section 139 subsection 4. Still, he can have the time limit 31st of December. Whether he will be able to revise his return of income if he discover any omission or mistake in his return filed on 1st December? Yes, sir. 139 subsection 5. He has time limit still 31st of December. What amount of interest and penalty he will be subject to for the default, if any, for the relevant NIR assessment here? So they are asking, sir, if you don't pay the self-assessment tax under section 140A, then you will be treating as assessee in default. Then you are liable to pay interest under section 220 and penalty under section 221, which may extend up to the tax payable, tax and interest payable. And you are liable to pay fees under section 234. As per section 139(4), if a person has not furnished the return of income within the time allowed under section 139(1), then he may furnish the return of income at any time before 3 months prior to the end of the relevant assessment year or before completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. For assessment year 23-24, late return can be filed up to 31/12/2023. Therefore, Arjun can file late return as per 139 subsection 4 on 1/12/2000. As per section 139 subsection 5, the revised return filed under 139(1) and return filed under 139(4) can be revised before 3 months prior to the end of the relevant assessment year. Yes or no? Therefore, late return filed by Arjun on 1/12/2023 can be revised up to 31/12/2023. As per 234F, there is a fees or fine where the income is above how much lakh and late return is Arjun will have to pay a fee of how much? Under 234F, since the return is filed up to 31/12/2023, assessee is liable to pay a fees of 5,000. In this case, up to 31/12/2023, அதனால 234F ல என்ன ஃபைல் பண்ணியாகணும்? 234F ல fine how much rupees file பண்ணணும்? 5,000. Because the total income exceed 5 lakhs. Correct? Besides, there will be interest under NIA 234A because for non-filing of return. Correct? The interest under 234A shall be computed as under period of interest. Sir, இவர் ஜெனரலா 31st July return file பண்ணிருக்கணுமா? அப்ப 1st August ல இருந்து return interest calculate ஆகுமா? அப்ப 1st August 2023 to 1/12/2023 க்கு தான ஃபைல் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. அப்படியே ஆகஸ்ட், செப்டம்பர், அக்டோபர், நவம்பர், டிசம்பர் எத்தனை மாசம் டிலே? 5 months. 1% per month or part of the mandana interest. What is the total tax remaining payable? 50,000. Adhik interest katna podu because remaining TDS advance tax irukku illaya. So 50,000 into 1% into 5 months will be the interest you are liable to be paid under section 234A. And in future, the AO can levy, sir, penalty and interest under section 220 and 221 as the. So with this, we are through with 20 question, that is second slot of assessment procedure. In the third slot, we'll be doing the another 10. Revise the 20 and listen to the next 30.